Beautiful. Thank you, Dea. Thank you. Good evening, all. Miyam Rama. I am Suada Tatunai, co-founder of Albanian American Cohesive Community. I was born in Podgorica. My father is from Pjavagusi and my mother is from Tuz. I'm a proud Albanian American. Mirë vini. Albanian American Cohesive Community would like to welcome you all tonight to our exciting discussion. I would like to thank our co-sponsors, Albanian American Women's Organization, Motra Qereazi, Albanian Student Leadership Association, John Jay College for Criminal Justice, and Shochni, the Albanian American Women's Club. Last weekend, we celebrated 108 years of independence. When we look back at everything our ancestors have been through and managed to survive, our history should fuel us to continue to unite our people and work on justice, equality, and liberation, along with healing scars our past may have left. Our people survived hundreds of years of occupation from the Ottoman Empire, political turmoil from the local and foreign governments, and many of our brothers and sisters went through ethnic genocide. For some, lack of justice and accountability and unmarked graves keeps these wounds fresh till today. Then there are those that were forced to completely lose their identity. I'm not referring to those that are in the diaspora and assimilate because of their surroundings. I'm talking about those that had to change their names and were not given the opportunity to get an education in their native tongue, and therefore ended up losing who they are on their own land was taken to them. Even today, they face consequences of waving the Albanian flags outside their own homes. As much as we celebrate freedom and liberation, we still have a long way to go. I think in order to accomplish ultimate liberation and equality, we need to address issues within ourselves, within our homes, and within our communities. We should not be shaming, degrading, discriminating, and abusing our own people. We face this enough from outside factors. We need to be more accepting and less judgmental. We need to focus on educating our youth. I strongly believe education is empowering and the key tool for liberation and success. We need to resurrect and build on the works of Gjergj Frishta, Sami Frasheri, and other notable men, include more women in the movement. We need to unite all Albanians to fight against discrimination against different religious views, fight against regional discrimination, against gender identity and sexual orientation. At the end of the day, there is the strong connect that we all have to being Albanian. There is a reason that people that have stepped outside our community still have strong ties and deep connections. Because no matter where we are, who we're with, or what we do, the blood that flows through our veins is still Albanian. Despite our differences, everyone unites and fights for our people. We've seen this countless times throughout history, and more recently, we united to help the victims of the earthquake that rocked Albania and caused all of us from near and far to take action and help. The Albanian American cohesive community is on a mission to unite and bring awareness to our uniquely beautiful community and provide a place of belonging for all. We are a survivor-led group with a special focus on domestic violence. Why do we treat our women with such disrespect when we are the descendants of queens like Teuta, warriors like Shote Galica and Nora Kelmendi? We share the same bloodline with a saint like Mother Teresa and our survivors and role models like Vesvia Krasniqi. We need to see the value and have the respect for every woman like we do for our own mothers. When we value all women just as much as we do our men, we can prosper together. In order for this to happen, we need to get the men to acknowledge that these inequalities and to join in the conversation. Tonight, we have a very diverse panel from different professional backgrounds to engage in the conversation. Without further ado, and thanks to the powers of Zoom, we leave New York and head to North Carolina. It is an honor to have Remida Shkoza moderate our panel. Remida is a social justice warrior and an activist supporting our LGBTQ brothers and sisters across the globe. She is a role model for what gender equality and liberation should be. Welcome, Remida. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sawada, and thank you for having me this evening. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here this evening. Mirmama. As the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, fight for the things you care about, but do it in the way that will bring people to join you. And this evening is just that. We are here to have an in-depth and honest conversation with trailblazers of our community who have demonstrated that issues of gender equality and violence don't need to be silenced. Freedom comes in many forms, and gender equality and liberation is one we must fight for and cherish. I just want to point out that this evening might be a trigger point for some of our attendees or community members. So please, if you need to take a moment or go in the break room and take care of yourself, please do so and honor yourself. Now I want to introduce our amazing panel. From Michigan, Valentina Jelay, Director of Program Services, Health Emergency Lifeline Program, and Violence Against Women advocate whose personal story and professional work has empowered women to seek justice and leave their violent situation. Welcome. From New York City, Dr. Zana Dobroshi, child and adolescent psychiatry specialist and violence against women advocate who has saved many lives. Welcome. From Texas, Blerim Elmazi, litigation attorney and violence against women advocate whose work inspires us to seek justice and reform the criminal justice system. He works closely with Black mothers to bring justice for them and their daughters and sons. From Texas, we have the amazing Vesvia Krasniqi Goodman, survivor, activist, and founder of Vesvia Initiative, whose life story, bravery, and commitment to justice inspires us to never give up and continue fighting, but also heal. Welcome. From New York, Mark Jonai, New York City Council member and violence against women advocate, whose work is so important in our Albanian American community, and he serves with pride and dignity. Welcome. From New York, again, we have Gentian Mazreiko, CEO of GS Cleaning and Violence Against Women Advocate, who on a daily basis empowers women in his community and business, and was the only Albanian man to publicly condemn domestic violence. He inspires other men to be real feminists. Welcome, everyone. Everyone's bios are on the IG page at the Albanian American Cohesion, so please go and check them out because they're amazing people. Councilman Jonai has to leave early due to another town hall meeting, so our apologies, but we still value his presence here today, so we will ask him to speak first. Councilman, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your time. I will start with you first. Councilman Jonai, fellow Albanian American feminist, please tell us, how does it feel to be Albanian in America? What is the work you have done on women's issues, such as being an elected official? And please share with us anything else you think it is important for this panel addressing gender equality and liberation for the Albanian community.
Ramida, thank you. And Rama, to all of you and the panelists, and there's so many of you that I know personally and so many more of you that I know your good work. Good evening all. First, let me start by saying thank you to the organizers for putting this event together. And thank you to the panelists for not only commemorating and celebrating Albania's independence, but also focusing and sharing on ideas and issues of gender equality and domestic violence. As Albanian Americans, we have made strides in all walks of life, but there's so much more that needs to be done, especially with gender equality issues. Domestic violence, a serious social problem and national health concern with significant negative psychological and economic impacts. It affects all backgrounds, cultures, and ages. In short, anyone can be a victim. Domestic violence is more than a private family matter. It is a matter of public awareness and public safety. Domestic violence often goes unreported, according to research, something that we're all aware of. In cultures such as ours, underreporting is an even bigger concern. The numbers are alarming. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, 1.3 million women, 835,000 men are victims of physical violence by a partner every year. Every 9 seconds, a woman in the United States is beaten or assaulted by a current or ex-partner. I'm proud that as a New York City councilman and former New York State assemblyman, I've introduced and signed many pieces of legislation to protect and support domestic violence survivors, such as the Victims Shield Protection Bill. I've been pushing for a more culturally appropriate and ethically targeted messaging. My office works closely with various agencies and organizations that end domestic violence and gender-based violence. Also, worked and been involved with many initiatives, helping survivors domestically and raising awareness by denouncing rape as a war crime in Kosovo in events such as Rally for Her Justice in New York City and Washington, D.C., and for Harina in Pristina in the main city of Kosovo. It starts with embracing and recognizing the survivors, empowering and sharing for the world to hear and understand so these horrors never happen again. I'm so inspired and humbled to have worked with my dear friend, Ms. Filia Krasniqi Goodman, who courageously is standing up for so many as she tells her story. And so many that are still stigmatized by their families and society. History has shown that the ultimate tragedy is not the cruelty of bad people, but the silence by the good people. It takes one person or a single voice or a shoulder to make a difference. Platforms and initiatives like this are also a great opportunity to raise awareness about domestic violence and the resources available to our community here in New York City and other communities at large. I again commend you for this initiative and wish you much success. No one should suffer in silence. There is help for safety and justice. Let's continue to raise awareness and share key resources with those who need help. Connect with New York City's DV hotline for 24/7 support at 1-800-621-4673, for the New York State hotline at 1-800-942-6906, or feel free to reach out directly to me and my staff at 931-1721. Ramita, I want to answer any question, but that statement for me was important, especially as I reflect on the many panelists and the powerful women, the courageous women that you have here with us tonight, as well as the brave men that know to support our courageous women.
Yes.
My dear friend Vida, Zana, Valentina, and Anila, which I know very well. I'm grateful to you for what you're doing, for the voice that you are, for the power that you have embraced, and for the fight that you're fighting for so many others. And to my brothers, Diantan and Larim, thank you. I'm grateful to you for doing your part as well. Anila, whatever I can do, I'm here for you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much, Councilman. It's awesome to have someone in your position to give the support and be a champion for these issues. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I would like to move on to the next question, and I would like to start with Valentina first, and then everyone else, please jump in. We are Albanians living in America. Our culture has strong traditional norms. How do we feel living in between two cultures or being torn between two different cultural values? How do we integrate our cultural upbringing and in meantime be open-minded, embrace the American freedom?
That's a great yet challenging question to start off with, so thank you. I'm fortunate to be living in America. I'm first generation American born and was raised by a village, right? My aunts, my uncles, cousins, as many Albanians are. Although I do know I am fortunate and have a lot of privilege, I'm going to be honest, I've often felt I was being torn between two cultures while growing up. I used to be embarrassed when my mother packed pizza for me for my lunch, or when my parents spoke Albanian to me in front of my friends because I knew I was different. Now I do anything though for, a little bit of my mother's pizza or a conversation with either one of my parents in any language. But for the longest time, I struggled to balance these two cultural identities, and mostly because I incorrectly associated both my positive and negative upbringing experiences with my Albanian culture. I found it very difficult to be Albanian while living in America and tried to go out of my way to blend in with my American friends. I rarely hung out with Albanian kids and tried to disconnect with my cultural identity. It wasn't until I started growing up and I was in at least junior high when I realized that the violence we were experiencing in our home wasn't the same life that my Albanian friends were experiencing. So I had to separate those two things. I found out that many Albanians were living in healthy home environments, which shocked me pleasantly. And at that point in my life, I was able to truly start embracing pieces of my culture and understand that what we were experiencing, again, was domestic violence and not tied to my culture. Now that I don't live in fear, I get to choose which pieces of my culture I get to incorporate in my life. It's honestly a great feeling because I'm safe and I'm in a healthy marriage. And I get the opportunity to take whatever traditions I want to hang on to and carry them forward in my own family. But safety is key, and not everyone is safe. Domestic violence doesn't discriminate, as the council member mentioned. It's found in every culture, especially cultures with a history of violence against women. That is why I share my family story. And that's why it's important that we learn from the past so we can move forward. Again, balancing these two cultural identities isn't easy. It hasn't been for me, and everyone does it differently. But it's much easier to be confident in your cultural identity when you don't live in constant fear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I share your sentiment. Who else would like to jump and answer that? Blarian?
Yeah. Well, let me first off say thank you guys for putting together this amazing panel. It's really such an honor to be here and share this discussion with y'all. And specifically about the balancing the two cultures. I think it's a great point, really. I grew up in Texas, in Dallas, Texas specifically, where there's not a very large Albanian community, so I felt even more detached than my New York City friends here. And so growing up, really, I did sense a bit of a detachment from Albanian culture, really outside of close family and relatives and a few friends here and there. And, as I, went to law school, became a lawyer, it wasn't really until that time that I really felt the greatest connection with the broader Albanian community. And, I've unfortunately gotten a lot of criticism for the type of work I do, specifically in regards to civil rights and Black Lives Matter, and even advocating for things like gender equality. I think, obviously, the Albanian culture is not immune to issues of gender inequality and domestic violence. And, the fact that we're even having this discussion today is really a testament to leaders here trying to, change the stigma, change the culture, and, move the conversation forward. And so I think it starts really with panels like this and, great leaders on this panel as well who not only teach on the subject and discuss it in public, but, share their ideas and their feelings in their own homes as well. We all have older relatives and family who may be stuck in old cultural mindsets that, I believe the younger generation is progressively moving away from, which is a good sign. And so I think there definitely is a way to both balance being, a good Albanian American and respecting norms of gender equality and, being vocal and very public about, advocating against domestic violence and cultural stigmas and things like that.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great point that you just brought up. And we're basically breaking the mold of the old ways,
Right.
and awesome. My third question, would like to start with Dr. Dobroshi and Vaspia. Can you please tell us, by using a personal experience from Albania or wherever you're from and America, to briefly tell us what does gender equality and liberation has meant to for you, your family, and what it should mean for our community at large?
Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to this beautiful event. It's great to hear all of you and to see you develop so well in United States. I'm older generation, as you know, and when you were talking about Pite, I was thinking of my own daughter who just recently told me how she would throw sandwiches away that I prepared because they looked different to her friends, and I didn't know she was hungry all the time. So when we come to United States, we don't come well enough like this, like you see us now. We all go through difficulties. We all go through suffer. And only second and third generation eventually are able to be free of the hurts that we all had to come to the positions that we have as a parents and then you as a children. Going back to how it feels being as Albanian in United States, I had experience being oppressed in Belgrade when I studied medicine. And to be in America, it was refreshing because I did not feel that oppression that I felt back there. However, every time when I have to get a license for medical license, every other year I need to renew it, I get slammed with my birthplace. I say Pristina, but where is the country? What is the country? Does not exist. And if it's not other there, what do you say? What do you say? World, what are you doing with us? Why you're not giving us freedom of having a country, but saying other, you know? So I complained. And when I had to get my passport, I refused to say other. So they had no choice other than to put Pristina, United States. So in my passport, Pristina is in United States, still better than other. So this is my experience with being Albanian in United States and not knowing language and, you know, having to face talking with accent and how much you have to overcome with your own knowledge and with your own hard work to be equal to people who have no accent. So, and then we are talking about equality of women. I had more problem being woman in Kosovo than in United States. So again, I think that still women in Kosovo, in places where the when the families are respected, where is no abnormality of violence, women are respected, sometimes even more than in United States. If we say that in Albanian population there is more violence than in American population, we are wrong. I don't know the numbers, but here is much more violence manifested than I heard when I worked in Kosovo. So, you know, now I was appalled though that women's rights are still not by law completely confirmed. And you know, you mentioned Ruth, but unfortunately, it's not done yet. Work is not done yet, and human rights is women's rights too, and LGBT rights, Q rights, and Black lives, and brown lives, and all lives, and religions. You know, so I don't know. Am I maybe taking too much time? But but I can jump in and talk more about violence in Albanian community here, and it's mainly in all immigrant families is more mental health issues, more violence, more substance use than in regular non immigrant families, and about 50% of mental illnesses start with childhood, and out of 50%, 40% more are in immigrant families, and because of high stress, the violence happens. And there are different things about acculturation and assimilation and ethnocentrism and xenocentrism that we can all discuss further if it's interesting. I think that is, from that also comes to, you know, not value enough people that are different from us. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Dobroshi. We will circle back to some of the points you were just making, which are really good points. Vasfia, what about you? What is your experience of living in America?
Oh, for me, in the beginning, it was complete culture shock.
Yeah.
I went from living in Pristina to living in a town, small town in Arkansas. You know, one of those towns, sundown towns. Yeah, it was very difficult. And when September 11 happened, I was being judged because of my faith, my family's background. and I had to move to a different town where there was more diversity. But unfortunately, living out there was not good enough for me, so I moved to Texas. Um, I I am proud to say that I'm proud Albanian American, but sometimes I take a step back to figure out what exactly makes me proud to be Albanian, what exactly makes me proud to be American, because there's so much work that needs to be done in both places. Um, I try to raise my daughters. I have two daughters here, and I try to raise my daughters to be open-minded. I took the good values we have from back home to raise my daughters, but also the good values that America provides to raise my daughters here, to be a good human being and not to look down on other people because we're all equal and we should be treated as such.
Thank you so much for bringing up the point of the points that what are the things that we should reflect on, that we're proud on, and what are the things that we should reflect that we need to keep doing. That's a really good point of living in America as an Albanian. Thank you so much to both of you. My next question is going to be for the gentleman. I would like to start with Gentian, actually. Women in our community see you guys, or you, as a feminist, meaning you believe and model gender equality. What does gender equality means to you?
First off, thank you for having me. It's pretty cool to be considered as, you know, one of the guys that gets to speak on this. You know, as you guys said in the beginning, this is like a very like just honest conversation, and you know, me being an Albanian man who works hard, supports a family, and I live in this country, yet still hold my cultural values. I definitely am proud to be pro-women, and a lot of that stems back, like Dr. Dobroshi said, from your childhood and how you were raised. I was raised with 3 younger sisters. I also had a mother who was a housekeeper here for 25 years. We came here when the war started. So to me, gender equality is not about making women stronger, because truth be told, women are already strong, stronger than most of us men, to be honest with you, whether it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes physically. You know, in our Albanian community, it's certainly an issue. It's an issue everywhere, but in our community, this whole notion of toxic masculinity is just a horrible thing, and we don't put our women on the forefront as much as we should. I think we fail to realize that having a powerful woman behind you can really send you further in anything that you do, whether it's personal life or business. You know, to me, this panel of women is an example of that. I mean, you guys, you know, the positions you hold and how far you have gotten, I think is an example of just what women can do. It's you know, it's a sensitive topic, and unless we battle it as a whole, the Albanian community on its own, for example, I mean, to do this as a whole with every religion and culture is one thing, but in our own community, I think more men really need to not just admit, but accept that, you know, times are changing and women are taking those seats that men once held. And you know, to me, that's really it. I wish more guys thought like me and thought like Mr. Jonai and Blerim, and you know, there's a lot of Albanian guys that are pro women. Maybe they're embarrassed to say it. You know, I'm not, because you know, I have an amazing wife at home who runs my business, manages my company and employees, and it's a beautiful sight to see, to be honest with you. So is it a matter of guys being embarrassed to say that they're pro women? I don't know, but I think our community is really just far behind when it comes to this topic, and it's almost a shame. And of course, panels like this are definitely something that helps a lot, and I hope this helps a lot. Um, I mean, other than that, I'm not sure what else to say. We really do need change when it comes to our mental, scope. Men, I think we need a more egalitarian approach to all this, and just realize that times really are changing, and we need to. I don't want to say accept that women can do what we do, because we shouldn't have to accept something. It's just, we should respect it. That's what I think.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you did bring up toxic masculinity, because that is a big issue in our culture, and it definitely has a ripple effect on how women are treated and how it affects the whole family life, even when you are an immigrant or live in a different country. So thank you. Blerium, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add. I think really what men who fear women in positions of power, what they fear most is a woman who goes and takes that power herself. And I think really coming to America, I think we see it best. Really, this is the land of opportunity, the land of freedom. I think of my own family really. When my mother wasn't busy working with my father, it was my older sister who was raising me. And we didn't have to. Fortunately, we didn't have to, wait around for, is my sister gonna work here, do this, do that? She went on to become a psychologist and a women's right activist in her own right. And some of my women cousins went on to become lawyers and doctors. And we weren't waiting around for anyone to tell us what was appropriate or inappropriate for a woman to do, especially an Albanian American woman in America, right? And so I think really we begin to see this cultural shift now to where whether some men think it's okay or not, it's going to happen regardless. And they better get on board, because any sort of cultural animosity that we've seen towards Albanian women, I think it's slowly vanishing, and you see it most in America. Yeah. And just the distinguished panelists here are sort of a testament to strong Albanian women in America, and I only see that progressing and going further and further. And I think it's really a signal to the rest of women in America, women around the world, Albanian women overseas, that there's this sort of empowerment here that I think really sets an example for women across the world.
Yeah. Thank you. That's awesome. Yes, absolutely. I want to ask the women in the panel, what are some contemporary issues you see in our community now, since you've dedicated your careers, your life to helping towards gender equality?
Well, I can give you a little bit of example. As you know, I work with children and adolescents, but I also work with families. And with Motor Chiriazi, we did have for a long time this mental health a little service that we provide for different families. And they call us, they call me directly, they call Motor Chiriazi, and this is how we connect and we work. So interestingly, there are families in New York City specifically that keep old-fashioned Albanian life, like all brothers and sisters, not sisters, but all brothers live together. They are married, they have children, they all live together, and they keep the old-fashioned way. Things that you don't see in Kosovo, in village, you see it in New York City in some families. And then the kids have problem. They have conflict because they go to school with American kids who don't have the same ways of living. So then it's this interesting conflict between parents who are more ethnocentric. They think that their culture is better than the other cultures, and children who are xenocentric, they think that other culture is better than their own. So they try to be like Americans, and then they become in conflict with their own family. So this is one problem that I see very frequently in Albanian families in New York City. And then men who are used to being very active and well-to-do in their homeland, they come here and they start to do things that they never did before, and they feel belittled, and they become, either they use drugs, alcohol, or become violent. And sometimes I see mothers who don't even know that their child or the baby is having traumas because of mother and father having conflict. So these are some difficult issues that I see in families that come for help. And if they come for help, then they are well off, because if you want help, then it's halfway work done. So there are many families probably that don't even ask for help.
Thank you, Dr. Dobroshi. Valentina or Vasfia, would you like to add something in terms of the contemporary issues you both have noticed in our community?
I do. Actually, I am quite a bit surprised when you meet Albanians that they live here in the United States and they still go by the Lake of Dugagini code. I do have the book. The book is, I'm not sure, it's just in the garage or somewhere. Sometimes I'll open up to read, just page here and there. But yes, you do have a husband or a father that goes by the book to the T. And I don't know what it's going to take to change that. We have a lot of work to do with our Albanian men. And the thing that I don't understand is I tell them all the time, like, if you want to live your life this way, why not stay in Kosovo or Albania, where you're from? Why come here for a better future, for a better life, but you don't like the freedom that comes with it? And for a woman to be free and have their own space and be independent. We don't belong to anybody. We're our own people. We're our own person. So yeah, I think, yes, and back home, obviously, in Kosovo, there is quite a bit of issues. But it is difficult over there to report abuse. From what I've heard, and I've been told from victims, that if the police officers, they show up, he might say, oh, spaskareshon. The file, yeah. And then you have a police that abuses his wife. You have a judge that abuses his wife. You have a lawyer that abuses his wife. Where are you going to go to get justice?
Right.
Yeah. And when it comes to mental health, we all know how that goes with Albanians. It's always a no-no. Like, oh, you have nothing. If you were to mention, they cannot separate the people. I think, this is my own opinion, Kosovars, we all suffer from some sort of PTSD, depression, because we went through the war. And it's not something that it heals itself on its own. But being Albanian, we have that Albanian pride. We're not going to seek any help. We're just going to pretend like everything is good and go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Mental illness is definitely very taboo in our culture, 100%. I'm actually going to, I guess, continue with Valentina, because we didn't get to talk about it because we are very limited in our time. I actually have a few more minutes left, and I wanted to ask our last question, which was, We have learned a lot from our experiences in fighting for independence in Albania and Kosovo. Why is it so important that independence should mean equal rights for all, including women, Black and brown people, LGBT people, and all other groups who are marginalized in our community?
Yeah, honestly, simply put, we are not free until all of our brothers and sisters are free. As we've been saying, Albanians have been through hell and back, yet we have proven time and time again that we are resilient. It is our responsibility as survivors to advocate and lend a voice to others who aren't able to speak up for themselves. And we need to work together to empower those that are marginalized. This is a start, right? This group right here that I'm honored to be a part of, we have to continue having these conversations. We have to changing our cultural norms. We have to continue fighting for all folks, whether they be Black, brown, LGBTQ. We need everyone to be treated equally so that we can all be free.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add to Valentina's remarks?
Actually, these kind of gatherings, be either via Zoom or face to face, are very much healing for everyone. And they help integrate us, not only keep our identity as Albanians, but also help us adjust better to culture and help us feel together and like a community. That is what is missing very frequently in United States. So thank you for doing this.
Well, I am so honored and pleased to have been part of this. This is also healing for me as a survivor, of mental health, as a refugee, as an immigrant. I can go on and on and on, but I am just so touched to be part of this panel. It's been very healing for me personally. And so I want to extend to the closing remarks, Anita Duro, who is one of the organizers with Soada, who've done an amazing job, and I'm so grateful for everything that you both have done. Anita Duro is the adjunct professor at John Jay College, Law and Police and Science Department. She's the faculty advisor of the Albanian Student Leadership Association. Anita, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Let's take a deep breath. It is my pleasure to be here with you today and no closing remarks. I think this discussion deserves a huge round of applause, Congratulations to all of you, the panelists, and all who worked hard to put this amazing academic and community panel together. John Jay College of Criminal Justice is the perfect institution to support this event, as social justice is at the core of what we do. I want to give a special thank you to our American ally, Michelle Mason, Policy and Operations Associate at the Institute for Innovation in Prosecution, for supporting our event. Sending some Albanian love, Michelle. Thank you so much. Something that I always struggle with is either denial or dispute of a social justice issue, either by a family member, a colleague of mine, friend, and sometimes even in my own classroom, I must admit. This is my advice, everyone. We cannot deny science. How do we move forward in building healthy and strong community for us, Albanian Americans? One way is to focus on science. Science is important, and this is why we decided to conduct a study on relationship experiences of Albanian American women. Science has two forms. One of those is statistics that many of you have cited on this panel, and we continue to cite. And the other part of science is people's stories and experiences. While statistics, numbers are important, 1 in 3 women experience domestic violence. I must admit that a mixed method researcher like myself, we always are moved by the stories that we hear. The stories stick with us, and the stories we hear are our experiences. And that is why this movement is so important. We will become aware, just like today, what we did. But remember, the safety is our priority. We will heal, like Dr. Dobroshi said, and we will start to take healthy actions in our homes, like what Gentian said, in our offices, in our practices, like what Valentina and Vladimir are doing, and Basfia and Ramita, like what I'm doing in universities like John Jay, and in communities to improve our lives for all. And by what I mean by all, our girls, our boys, our men, us, the women, and the non-binary people, our Albanian American brothers and sisters. We are warriors. Basfia, you are a warrior. We are survivors. I am a survivor. And we heal every time we tell our stories, little by little. This panel was very healing for me, Dr. Dobroshi. Let's liberate ourselves. I will leave you with my favorite quote from Jose Vargas. If my freedom bothers you, then you are not as free as you think you are. And in the words of my mother, I will see you at the art auction, everybody. Sending you Albanian love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us at the art auction.